It's the Sean No Sports Madness Special. We're joined by our roundtable, Ivetta Abramyan, Cade Welty, Brett Ramirez, Jason Carmello, and the legend Mychal Hunter. Let's go.
Sean, we're going to start right off with you. What did the committee get wrong this year? With
nothing. Absolutely nothing. They got it all right, perfectly right. The bubble was treated like they should have. They claim resume metrics, strength of wins to get in, predictive metrics for seeding the 68 teams. They did it. Expansion could have screwed this up. No one wanted to see Auburn in. No one wanted to see Auburn in. No one wanted to see Auburn in, and they're not in. Now, there was some, some Miami of Ohio, fourth team safe in the tournament, and they were scrubbed down to the last team in the tournament. Potato, tomato. Nobody wanted to see Auburn in, and they didn't make it in. Now, the question I have for you guys is simple and easy. What did the NCAA do right? Mychal Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I think to touch on basically what you just said, I agree. I think, leaving out teams like Auburn, Oklahoma City, Indiana, I think that's the right move. Putting Miami of Ohio in the first four was the right move. 31 wins, but no real signature victories over the course of the season. Really lacking in the strength of schedule. So you can't really keep them out because they did win 31 games, but they also didn't really prove themselves. So you stick them in the first four. I think it brings a level of excitement to the first four, especially because they're pretty much going to be at home. So overall, I think the committee did a great job with who they kept out, who they brought in, and where they put people.
Jason, what do you think?
I think the committee was transparent. Again, this is 2 years in a row. They've been pretty transparent. They've said, like you said, Sean, if your wins above bubble or your resume metrics are in the top 40, you're probably making the NCAA tournament. They said it last year after they said it during the reveal in February, and then they said it again yesterday. So that was, they kind of stayed on schedule. I also thought they did something that they have not historically done. They rewarded conference champions. This is both right and wrong that they did this year. They rewarded some conference champions, especially on Sunday. Who would have thought winning the Big Ten actually mattered? It did this year. So they weren't consistent with it, which is kind of the one piece that I struggled with, especially in terms of Vanderbilt. But all in all, they did a really good job sticking to the transparency they had from years past.
Ivetta, what did the NCAA do wrong?
They got the teams right, so kudos to them on that. And I agree. I think they did a good job rewarding conference champions. That was very respectable. I'd say a majority of the seating was appropriate. My only qualms, I think, were St. John's. I think that perhaps warranted at 4 seed. And then Utah State, I think, I know Jared Calhoun was chanting, give us a 6 seed after they won the tournament. But I think giving them a 7, I mean, they did kind of, dominate some very tough Mountain West opponents there in their conference tournament. So, 8, 9 doesn't really matter. So I think, they were worthy of a 7, but otherwise strong resumes were rewarded. And I feel like, just like the rest of y'all said, they were pretty transparent this year. So that avoided any potential controversy. So kudos overall to the committee. I think they got it right.
Question: if you were going to have St. John's as a 4, who do you knock down?
That's a great question.
I mean, Kansas, Arkansas goes, and makes SEC noise. You've got Nebraska, Alabama. Do you drop down Alabama?
Probably Alabama or Nebraska. Just recency bias.
Jason, what you got?
I agree with a lot of the points being made. I think the one team and where the committee got it wrong was Vanderbilt. If you're going to reward some of these teams, I don't know how you could have missed that Vanderbilt beat Florida on a neutral court by 17. And Vanderbilt had 17 wins in quads 1 and 2, which is in the top 5 in the country. They just missed on Vanderbilt. And we talk about that they had a better resume than a lot of the teams ahead of them. You could have easily had a conversation about whether Vanderbilt's resume was better than Virginia, who acquired a 3 seed. A lot of us kind of studying it thought there was a chance that Vanderbilt could be on the inside back edge of the 3 line. They ended up on a 5. So I thought Vanderbilt had the biggest beef of all the teams.
And Vandy might be upset. We'll talk about that later. Mychal Hunter, what do you got?
I thought St. John's was kind of appropriately seeded, to be honest. I know that as they did their bracket reveal, they didn't really approve of the 5 seed. Outside of UConn, they didn't really beat a whole lot of teams. The Big East isn't very strong this year. They did beat Villanova earlier in the season. I'm not sure how much weight that Villanova win carries. I probably would have swapped. I know we're splitting hairs at this point, but I would have swapped Arkansas and Gonzaga. I would have given Arkansas the 3 and put Gonzaga in the 4, just overall strength of schedule. I know Gonzaga got some good wins early in the season, but I think to me, it might be a situation where the eye test comes into play. When I watch Gonzaga play, when I watch Arkansas play, I think Arkansas is a far superior team, I guess, is what that comes down to for me.
Brett Ramirez, what did the NCAA do completely wrong?
I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword for me. And we talk about all the movement that happened along the seed lines going into the tournament just in the last week alone. You look at, you got Arkansas and potentially Wisconsin in the round of 32. That could easily be a Sweet 16 matchup. But then one team's going to have to go home in the round of 32. TCU, Ohio State. Both teams are very capable of taking down Duke. I wholeheartedly believe that. At the same time, one of them is going to have to go home first round. It's just, and that's kind of just like that's what happens when you have this kind of tournament. You're going to have someone's going to have to lose. So I think some of the things that I think some of the matchups could have been pushed back to a later part of the tournament, but that's just how it cookie crumbles sometimes.
Cade Welty, what did the NCAA do wrong?
But Alabama is a 4 seed. You lose to Ole Miss in that tournament. Sure, Ole Miss was red hot in the SEC tournament. Let's not get that mistaken, folks. But Alabama is a 4 seed. It just doesn't quite make sense to me. Wisconsin played better basketball at the end of the year. They could have jumped to a 4. We're going to keep talking about the St. John's fiasco. They deserve to be a 4 over that. If you beat 2-seeded UConn twice, why are you 5th? Again, somebody has to be there. Another one they got wrong is Villanova and Utah State in 8-9 matchup. Where on the book should that be an 8-9? If you want a real late matchup, that should be the 7-10 and flip the teams. That should be Utah State playing 10 seeded Villanova. Those are the kind of things that I think they got wrong. And also North Carolina being a 6 seed. I know you can't punish teams for being hurt too badly, but they also haven't played inspirational basketball. They're kind of like Texas Tech, falling apart after losing their star player. So you can argue in that area as well. But other than that, I think they did pretty good. Sure, Vanderbilt got robbed too, but again, somebody has to take one for the team, and unfortunately, it was Vanderbilt.
You may be vindicated here as, Aiden Holloway gets caught with a pound of weed. We're going to see what happens there and what happens with Alabama. I thought one thing they did get right was Santa Clara. I was a little nervous just 2 weeks ago that they would even be in the field. I really didn't trust some of these guys right here, thinking they were clearly in, but they were obviously way in with a 10 seed, and they actually got a pretty good matchup. Honestly, Kentucky can be beaten. I think we've seen that time and time again this year. So, I think the committee absolutely got that right. Santa Clara was clearly in, and I've got to have more faith in these guys and what they tell me every week, I guess.
Question for everyone. Aiden Holloway. It's a yes/no question. Aiden Holloway, will he play for Alabama in the NCAA tournament? Mychal Hunter, yes/no. Nate Oates.
Yeah.
Playing a pro player, yes/no.
Yes.
Ivetta.
Yes.
Jason Carmello.
He will absolutely play.
Cade Welty.
He'll play.
Brett Ramirez. Save us.
Without a shadow of a doubt, Sean, he will play.
They can win the national championship with him. I mean, winning solves everything, right?
I don't know. I don't know if felony charge winning does not fix that.
The university is aware of the allegations and is
Brandon
working
Miller
to
played.
gather more information. The student has been removed from campus pending further investigation by the Alabama Office of Student Conduct. Yeah, he'll play. Should he? No. Will he be a distraction? Yes. You guys are all right on the consistency of the NCAA. So I want to know, what did the NCAA hit on the nose? What did they get 100% correct?
Setting a ground rule that if you sign an NBA contract, no matter what kind of NBA contract it is, you can't play. Did the NCAA do anything right? Let's be real, guys. Does the NCAA do anything right? I mean, we're gonna go to 76 teams soon, so like, love the NCAA, guys. I'm huge supporter, so they don't sue me. Do not sue me, NCAA. I do not have the money for it.
Putting Fran McCaffrey in the first round against Illinois when he couldn't beat Illinois to Iowa is kind of interesting. I love those little B storylines that nobody really knows about until people bring it up. But that's a good one, I think. And he almost completely lost his mind in the Ivy League tournament. The Ivy League tournament was fantastic, by the way. I don't know if anybody watched it, but there was moments where you thought maybe he was going to blow his stack, and that's never good for his team. But he kept it somewhat under control. So it's always entertaining when he's on TV. I think the tournament's a product when he's here. So,
Cade Welty.
Setting up a potential train wreck of a national championship between John Calipari and Rick Pitino. That could end up being the greatest national championship of all time because they both love each other, hate each other. We don't know what the relationship is still to this day. It would be absolute class. Thank you, NCAA, for setting up a potential bomb in the final game of the year.
Ivetta.
This isn't really their doing on purpose, but I like the idea of Miami, Ohio only traveling like an hour to their first 4 game. I think that just sets up for good watchability. They should have a lot of fans there, packed house. So I think it'll make it a little bit more exciting.
Ramirez.
I'm going to go with rewarding Northern Iowa with the 12 seed. They had a really great run in the MVC tournament. They had to face a red-hot, pun intended, UIC team in the conference championship game. And this is a team that you don't want to see. I mean, they have a top 25 defense in the country. Statistically, I like that they kept Northern Iowa, even though they were in the middle part of the MVC. I like that they gave them the 12 seed.
Jason Carmello.
They established, this is not their forte, but they established a couple precedents with selection. They said you can't be one game over 500 and make the tournament, which I think is a very important thing to do. That was going to be a slippery slope from here on out if a 17 and 16 team gets in. And I think that sends a bad message to a lot of, the other conferences and how they could schedule. I also agree on the Miami points that if you go undefeated in a league that produces 11 seed type teams or 12 seed type teams, you have to make the NCAA tournament. If you go undefeated and you don't, then what's the purpose? So I think those two precedents were really, really important. Listen, yes, Auburn won at Florida, but they also lost 16 games. So I think they did those two things correctly.
Mychal Hunter.
Yeah, I think what they did, just to go even further into that Miami situation, is they made it a game that people are going to want to watch. If you haven't watched SMU, that backcourt, Jaden Pierre and Boopie Miller, could combine to score 50 or 60 points. SMU also plays zero defense. So, Miami can really show out here and be like, hey, we're here. We deserve to be here. Those 31 wins aren't really a fluke. I think it's going to be a good game. I ultimately think SMU is going to win the game, but I do like the effort there. And I also love that they absolutely loaded Duke's bracket in the South region. Like, that's a hard road for the Blue Devils to get out, led by freshmen. They got a little bit of an injury thing going on right now. That's going to be a real hard road for Duke to get out of, and I'm here for that. I love that. Whenever Duke loses, America wins. So here we go.
Ramirez.
You're going to talk about the first 4. I think the whole first 4 in itself is fantastic. We saw NC State, Texas earlier this year in Hawaii. Prairie View and Lehigh had to go through hell and back to get through their conferences. UMBC has been doing numbers on Twitter. It's been fantastic to see. Howard finally back in there. Women's and men's are there too. And then, like you talked about, Miami, Ohio, and SMU. The first four is going to garner so much attention on the first day. It's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited to watch that.
And I will always root for UMBC because anyone who beats Virginia will always have my ever-loving fanaticism forever. 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 Cade Welty.
Yeah, going on piggyback talking about the first four games, one of the opponents who would have to play the winner of Texas, NC State, BYU. I was down on BYU. I've been reported saying that multiple times. I said they're going to be nothing without Saunders. DeBanza proved that otherwise. Rob Wright proved that otherwise. They've had the bigs playing bigs finally. That was my biggest complaint. You can't play basketball if you don't have good bigs. Texas Tech. And so reward them with a 6 seed, I think is the right thing to do because now, Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but middle of the year after that Saunders and they kept falling, they fell a lot of seed lines really quickly because one of your best players is hurt, right? And so I think rewarding them with a 6 seed. They had a good Big 12 tournament. DeBanza looked fantastic. You're going to get a good game for that 6-11 anyway. So I just want to applaud NCAA and the committee for giving BYU a 6 seed.
Mychal Hunter.
Yeah, just on the UMBC thing, nobody really watches the America East tournament. I'm from Maine. UMaine's in the America East. DJ Armstrong is a phenomenal talent. That kid has the capability to put 30 on the board, which he proved throughout the America East tournament. He's a player to watch. I'm not saying they're going to get the upset, but they could absolutely make things interesting.
Let's go Retrievers. What would have ruined this tournament? Well, expansion would have ruined this tournament. Why would expansion ruin this tournament? In my opinion, because you're adding in Auburn, and you'd be adding in New Mexico, who didn't prove it, Oklahoma, who cares? There wasn't anybody in that first 4 out where I was like, you know what? They deserve to be in. Did anyone, Jason, in your mind, from the first 4 out, deserve to be in the tournament?
No, I think they got the teams right this year. I think expanding it would have put in, just like you said, a couple teams that shouldn't have made it. Oklahoma, all these teams that didn't make it were a couple wins short. And so then you're a couple wins short. Then you don't make it this year and you try to do it again next year. It was simple. Oklahoma had to keep winning. They weren't able to do it, so they don't make it.
Mychal.
I agree. Yeah. I think you're splitting hairs. Again, I've always thought 64 is the perfect number. You know, do I need to see more of Auburn, Oklahoma, Indiana, or Cincinnati? No. I thought it would have been cool to have New Mexico in there, I guess, because I'm a Mountain West kind of fan. I think Eric Olin is an up-and-coming coach that's going to end up in a Power 5 conference at some point. You know, I would have been fine to see Stanford in. I mean, I don't think they were really that close, but, you know, Okori is a talent that should be in the tournament because he can do AJ DeBanza type things and win a game for Stanford all by himself. So, you know, but those are minor storylines. Those teams should have won more games. I mean, Stanford plays in a not great ACC, and all the teams mentioned in the first 4 out should have won more games. It's great that you play a bunch of people, but you eventually have to beat somebody too. So,
well, it just proved right there. Miami of Ohio is in because they won the games that they were in. It doesn't matter of how good they were; they won, so they're in. Cade Welty.
There were so many coaches, both women's and men's basketball coaches at Texas Tech when we were there, talked about the prestige of playing in March Madness. And if you expand the tournament, you lose the prestige because then it becomes everyone gets to join. I was a huge fan of them earlier. I don't want to see Tulsa play in March Madness. I definitely don't want to see Auburn. That means I have to see Bruce Pearl again.
Auburn.
I know he'd still be on my television, but at least he's there. You don't want to see Oklahoma State playing the big dance. They didn't do anything to play in the big dance. So I think keeping it where it's at right now, and like Jason said, they nailed the teams. OU, I was like, OU could sneak in because the bowl team sucked. Well, then they lost to Arkansas. So then there goes your argument. Congrats for keeping poor Moser. You guys will be in the same spot next year. Congrats, guys. Appreciate you. But nobody wants to watch that. So if you nailed the first four in. I mean, sorry, the four last one. Sorry, and you nailed the playing games. Don't need more teams. All it does is make it less prestigious, and it gives these bad programs who don't care enough spotlight.
Ivetta.
Yeah, this season has been a perfect example of why more isn't always better. We saw that with, just like everybody else said, I echo that sentiment. We saw that with the poor quality of some of these bubble teams. So if this was an expanded field in lieu of some deserving mid-majors that would get squeezed out, it would certainly dilute the quality of the tournament. I agree with Cade. The prestige would start to wither away. And then you have teams like Yale, for example. I mean, there's a few of those this season that are more deserving than, again, some of these middle of the road powers that are, again, just have no business being in the tournament.
Bruce Pearl said when asked if he could be objective, yes, I 100% can. I think it's okay that Auburn and Oklahoma, for example, aren't in the field. Auburn. I think it's okay. They should have won one more game. One more game isn't going to matter, Bruce. He prides himself on telling you what he really thinks. Was he rooting for his son? Of course he was rooting for his son. Auburn. That right there, Cade and Brett were with me, and every time they had the volume down while we were watching the brackets being revealed. And every time I looked and saw Bruce Pearl, I just kept on saying Auburn because there was no objectivity. He's still getting paid by the school. Come on, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see it eventually. I think we all know that. But the establishment of the revenue sharing floor and the NIL floor at $6 million, a lot of these member schools are going to start saying, well, we need to generate more revenue, which comes from the TV dollars, which means they're going to be needed to be included into the NCAA tournament to generate that revenue, to collect that money. Otherwise, you're going to see some Power 5 teams just barely over that, whatever it is. It's not a salary cap, but a salary floor, basically. So I think they're going to start crying when they have to dip into football money or other money, or they even have to cut programs. I think that's a very real possibility. So I expect them to expand just to generate more revenue to get some of these schools. So they spend more money on the players. You get better players, you make the product better, and the whole world revolves around money. So that's where we're going to be at here. And I would say 2 to 3 years.
Ivetta.
I just want to point out that he was wearing an Auburn tie during the selection show.
What? Look, I understand you support. I support my son. I support my daughter. And I am pretty damn objective when I am covering for a team. I will call a team out for being bad, stupid. I call it like I see it. But what he did crossed the line of what professionalism is. That's my thought. Cade.
Since you're doing Auburn hit pieces right now, I have a little thing to add on. Bruce Pearl said they were 1 win away. Yes, that would put you at 18 and 15 instead. That's worse than OU and Texas. Still worse. Texas went 18 and 14. They're a playing game. Congrats, UT. OU 19 and 15. Conference record sub 500. I don't think you would make it in either way, Auburn.
Jason, would Auburn get in? Would Auburn get in if they had one more win?
They would have taken, I believe they would have taken, if they were 3 games over 500, they would have taken Texas' spot. I do believe that. I think they would have got in. I think they were looking for it, and they had a very similar resume. They didn't want to set a precedent of 16 losses. They didn't want to set a precedent 1 game over 500. So they said, basically Texas's resume probably wasn't as good as Auburn's, but they couldn't go with those losses, so they took Texas.
So pretty. Guys, let's start out with the regions. Which region is the toughest? The absolute ironclad, I don't want to go through this region. Michael.
Duke as the overall number 1 seed makes it strong to begin with. St. John's is the 5 seed. I think they were seeded correctly, but the 5 seed in that bracket is crazy. Bill Self, obviously Hall of Fame quarterback with maybe the number 1 draft pick, and Darren Peterson. Louisville as the 6. If Michael Brown is right and Isaac McNeely can start hitting threes, which he doesn't seem to do a whole lot of lately, Louisville can be really dangerous. Tom Izzo, another Hall of Fame coach. Sorry, same thing. Mick Cronin, another, really, really strong head coach. And then UConn, Danny Hurley, he kind of makes that whole thing interesting regardless of who he's playing against. So I think the South is absolutely loaded. It's a tough road for Duke. I am not 100% sure who I have coming out of that bracket right now. I think I've filled it out probably 10 times, and I've gotten probably 3 or 4 different teams consistently. So the South, I think, is going to be a bloodbath.
South, East?
East, sorry.
Brett, which region is the toughest?
And it's the East, like Michael said. Maybe maybe the South. I don't know, but no, it's the East pretty handily, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why for Duke. Duke's, you're without Caleb Foster. You don't have Patrick and Ngongba. You don't know when they're going to come back at this point in time. So, and then you're also the number 1 overall seed according to the NCAA. So it's like, yeah, you should, in theory, have the best route there. But like you said, Dan Hurley, your 2nd seed. Michigan State, Louisville, Kansas, St. John. It doesn't get easier as you go down the road. And then you immediately might have a second game against 2 teams that are really hot in Ohio State and TCU. It's not set up for you to do well, especially without 2 starters in Caleb Foster and Patrick Ngongba.
Cade Welty.
I'm going to be contrarian. I'm just going to go with the original South that has Florida and Houston in it. And the reason why is also for the unpredictability. Vanderbilt knocked off Florida in the tournament. Vanderbilt could also get their butts kicked by McNeese. McNeese's defense is great. Sean has pointed that out many times. Nebraska and Troy. Troy's high flying. They're very gritty. They like to turn the ball over. And Nebraska has shown to beat the Big 10 teams that are at the upper echelon. They've seen to also fall off the planet. North Carolina doesn't have their star player. VCU looks really good in the late part. St. Mary's, Texas A&M. That's 2 polar opposites playing basketball with each other. It's going to be really fun to watch. And then you have Houston as well in that bracket. I'm not going to talk about Clemson, Iowa, because that one doesn't matter. But those other teams, Florida and Houston, were met in the national championship last year. Now they have to play each other to get there. You're not going to get to see them go against in the final dance. So I definitely think the South is the conference where when all these when I was watching with Sean and Brett, I went, ooh, I'm so happy I don't see the Red Raiders name on that list. Let me just say that.
Ivetta.
So I agree on the East. I think the East is just obviously a gauntlet. But I love this question because there's a lot of subjectivity there. I'm also interested in the West. I think the West is like a sneaky competitive region. I think if Arizona does fall, I think there are actually quite a few teams that could emerge out of this region. Because you've got Wisconsin, you have a lot of teams that have been hot, that have just been hot as of late, which obviously, that matters quite a bit. So Wisconsin, you've got Arkansas, obviously BYU's, they will likely won't make it all the way, but you never know. They definitely have the horses to do it. Miami, Purdue. This is Gonzaga. I feel like any of these teams can, put together a string of upsets.
I think the East is the toughest, as Michael and Brett pointed out. I do think I agree. If Ohio State can beat TCU and Duke's going to have to deal with Bruce Thornton for 40 minutes in an NCAA tournament game, the world might have to see that he might be, one of the 3 best point guards in the country, and he's going to be a handful. So I think that, those types of games make it really tough. And obviously playing a St. John's team who's playing really, really well will be no picnic for Duke. But I think it's the East.
Michael?
Is Malik Brown hurt as well? I thought that he might have left the game in the ACC tournament, but if he's not there, I mean, he's their primary defensive stopper. So, if they're playing Bruce Thornton in the second round and they don't have Malik Brown, they don't have Caleb Foster, then Bruce Thornton is going to show everybody why he's the all-time leading scorer at Ohio State, I think. So, yeah, that's a very interesting potential matchup as well.
I'm going to take the lead on the easiest region. The easiest region, without a doubt, in my mind, no doubt, you can circle this all you want. The easiest region is the Midwest. It is a cornucopia of teams that can be either really, really dangerous or train wreck. I could see Michigan go all the way, but I could see them lose to St. Louis. I could see Texas Tech get past Alabama, but I could also see Akron beat Texas Tech. Tennessee, you're trusting Tennessee out of the second weekend into the second weekend. Virginia, you lost to UMBC, so you'll never have my trust. Kentucky is a coin flip on who they are, and Iowa State, good, but can be beaten. The Midwest is going to, whoever comes out of the Midwest is still going to be one of the weakest Final Four teams, in my opinion, unless it's Iowa State. Brett.
You want to talk about the Midwest region? This is like the region of 2026, right? This is like the new brand of basketball. There's so many really good shooting teams here. Alabama, SMU, Texas Tech, St. Louis, Georgia. There's so many good shooting teams in this region. But like you said, if they're not on, what are you going to do? There's not, with the exception of Michigan and Iowa State. You don't have a lot of teams that like to play inside. Maybe Georgia a bit. Nate Ahmed from Tennessee, fine. These are all. There's just a lot of shooting teams. And in the words of Charles Barkley in 2015, I don't trust jump shooting teams. So we're gonna see what that's gonna look like. I think you lose in the Final Four, whoever comes out of this region.
East region is mine. East region has been a lot of people's as the strongest. Michael, what is the weakest region?
I think it's the Midwest. I think Michigan has a pretty easy road, to be honest. I mean, St. Louis really doesn't scare me. They didn't finish the season all that well. I mean, they did, but they're not a team that really strikes fear in anybody. I don't think they're really much of a match for Michigan. And like Brett said, there's 2 teams I think in this region that have players that they can go to get easy buckets when they need to. That being Josh Jefferson from Iowa State and Yaxel Landenberg from Michigan. I'm not sure any of those other teams really have that. I mean, obviously, Christian Anderson's really good for Texas Tech, but is he at full strength? Groin is a difficult thing to get over. Texas Tech is injured all over the place. I'm not even sure they really get out of the first round, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't trust Rick Barnes. Virginia 27-4, that's fine. But what happens if they bump up against Iowa State? I think Iowa State is leagues ahead of where Virginia is. Kentucky has that name cachet, but this team I don't think is where it's at either. I think this bracket is absolutely the weakest by a fire margin, I believe.
Fire sale. Easiest bracket. Cade Welty, who's your choice?
The Midwest, obviously. Thanks, Brett. I love the reaction from you. Just because also we have to realize that Michigan's health with Yaxel Lindenberg is still in question. You don't have your backup point guard who played huge minutes to a torn ACL. So their depth is quickly depleting. And that's your number 1 seed in that bracket. You have Iowa State. It's Iowa State. They whooped the Red Raiders, and they look great in the Big 12 tournament, and they lost to a buzzer beater by Bradley. Iowa State also has the potential to blow up if they can't shoot from outside. The moment they can't shoot, as long as the paint's not open for them, and you force them to beat you outside, they struggle to beat you outside through the whole season. Recently, they haven't. Those are your 1-2 seeds of the teams you expect to make it out of this bracket, who you could pencil in, who Jay Billis did pencil in, by the way.
Yeah, but he
And
also, but also, there are a bunch of people that penciled Virginia versus UMBC. But I digress.
Yeah, and just Virginia's in this bracket as well. Good job, Virginia. You were decent. You were the second or third best team in the ACC in a bad ACC. Congrats, you did it. And then, like Brett said, it's a bunch of teams who love to shoot. It's going to be my favorite regional watch, not because I personally cover Texas Tech. It's just the most chaotic. It has the most chaos. You could have a bunch of crazy upsets or all chalk, and nobody would be surprised either way. That's why the Midwest is so easy, because they're not winning the national championship. I'll bet that national champion's not coming out of the Midwest.
Jason, is the national champion going to come out of the Midwest, or this is going to be the chalkiest region for people to make their brackets out of?
Oh goodness. I think the Midwest might be the easiest region. I'll play Contrain in a second, but I think if Michigan's healthy, I think Michigan's gonna win the national title. That's my pick for the national title. I think the weakest region is I'm going to look at it from a bracketologist point of view is the West, and the only reason is of course they have wonderful teams and they got teams that can win the national title. I just look at it from for the Big Ten tournament. Purdue's on the front of the 4 line. Going to the West Coast Conference, Gonzaga might have been on the front of the 4 line as well with Purdue, and Arkansas was at the 5 line. So all those teams played a really good week, and their seeds show that, and that's great. But Purdue spent the season not guarding anybody, and they were regarded as one of the most disappointing teams in the entirety of the country heading into championship week. So there's still warts for Purdue. There's still warts for Gonzaga. Again, could those teams make it? Sure. But when you talk about 2 and 3 seeds, those teams weren't there for the later part of the season.
Friends, which team got the best and worst draw? Michael?
I think I wasn't really thinking Arizona as the favorite to win the national championship before the bracket came out. But, I mean, the committee walked them right into the second weekend, I believe. They're going to have a tough test with Arkansas. Darius Akoff is obviously dynamic. Billy Richmond is, maybe one of the better glue guys, high-end glue guys in the entire nation. Trevor Brazile was a monster in that game, in the championship game for the SEC. So, Arkansas could be tough, but you look down at the bottom, who's going to come out of there that is going to scare you if you're Arizona? I mean, I could see Purdue, obviously, but like Jason just said, they've been one of the more volatile teams, I guess, this season, as far as how they perform. Obviously, they performed well in the Big Ten tournament, but recency bias could be dictating all of that. Like, they could revert back to the team that was sketchy, in February. So, do I trust them? No. Do they have a fantastic starting 5? Yes. But, I mean, Gonzaga doesn't scare me if I'm Arizona. Certainly not BYU, Miami, any of those teams. Arizona's just – they overmatch everybody in that region except for Arkansas, I think. But ultimately, I think they pretty much walked Arizona to the Final Four.
Ivetta.
Michigan. I think Michigan has a pretty easy path. At least I mean, they are definitely, I just don't see anybody, at least from the top part of their region, stopping them. I think they may, Iowa State might be their toughest opponent there. So I'm going to go with Michigan. I think they have a pretty easy path.
Brett?
Right with what Ivetta said, I think it's Michigan. If you look at it, say St. Louis beats Georgia in that second round, Robbie Avila, the downside, he's a fantastic player, but the downside of playing the A-10 is his ability to stretch the court and play outside hasn't really been challenged in the A-10. Meanwhile, if Jackson Lindeborg's back, he can defend all 5 positions. So I think I think Robbie Alba gets shut down in that game. You look on Alabama, Akron, Hofstra, Texas Tech. I'll say this might be a hot take, and I'll say this: Tech, if you're Alabama or Texas Tech, you could give a Michigan a run for their money. But if you're not hitting from outside, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen because if you say Luke Bemboy, he's going to get obliterated inside by Yaxel Lindebor and Ademara. You look on the other side of things, Iowa State, yeah, absolutely. Joshua Jefferson and Ademara is going to be primetime television. But then you also have Elliot Cadeau versus Taylor Lipsey. It doesn't get easy when you get to the Elite Eight, but getting to that point, I think it's Michigan.
Jason.
Michigan's the pick, but I'm gonna just go off the cuff here, and I'm gonna go with no 5 seeds ever had a better draw than Vanderbilt, because no 5 seed has ever stared at the 1 seed and said we beat you 2 weeks ago by 17 and we can do it again. So I think Michigan has the best path. I agree with all the points ahead, but usually 5 seeds don't have the confidence that Vanderbilt. If they can get past McNeese, which won't be easy, Vandy's got a really good draw to go really far in the tournament. And probably meet Houston in the Elite Eight.
Cade.
Jason unfortunately stole mine, so great minds think alike right there. But I'm gonna have to take Michigan State's path further at the 3 line. Your potential matchups either USF or Louisville. I think you match up great physically with USF. I think you easily match up with Louisville. Then you get to play the UConn or UCLA. UConn is still UConn in the tournament, but they're not as special as they used to be. And UCLA, Donovan Dent's great. That's all I have on him, right? So then you're in the Elite Eight, and you're going to play a banged-up Duke potentially. Carr's going to have a field day. It's going to be Carr versus Boozer, and then whoever else can step up after that. So if we're talking about easiest pass to then you got to win a game and then all, hell breaks loose, it's Michigan State with the 3 line.
Michael.
Yeah, flipping the coin, I just want to touch real quick. Iowa State didn't get any favors at all in this bracket. I mean, imagine playing Tennessee State in the first round, and then you potentially get Kentucky in your second round matchup. If you win that, you go against 27-win Virginia, and then you get Michigan as the prize for going through that bit of a gauntlet. So Iowa State it's going to be a tough road, and if they get to Michigan, then you got to really start thinking about them for a national championship contender, I think.
Anyone want to give who got the most impossible draw? Ivetta, go.
I think Duke has the toughest draw. I think there's as far as the top seeds, I don't think anybody really comes close, in my opinion.
Michael, who has the hardest draw? You're still muted, Michael.
Apart from Iowa State, I would actually stay in the Big 12. Kansas is buried in the East. You get St. John's in the second round, which is maybe the strongest 5, I'm sure. And then say you get out of there, you get Duke. And if you get out of there, you're probably going to get UConn, I would imagine. So, I mean, you're talking about 3-4 prestigious blue blood type programs in succession. I mean, that's a crazy road to try to get to the Final Four.
Brett.
I'm going to go on a limb here. I know they get home court advantage starting in the Sweet 16, but I'm going to go Houston. Buckyball has been proven this year to really being able to speed up the pace of any team. They're going to give St. Mary's a run for their money. And then if you do that, you get to face one of the tallest teams and most physical teams in the country in Illinois. And we've seen Texas. We saw against Arizona in the Big 12 championship game. They got out physical that game. And then if you go from there, you get Florida again, who what happened last year. So, and that's all just to get to the Final Four. So Houston has a difficult road ahead of them, even though they get to play in Houston in the second weekend.
I think that makes it easy for them. They're so easy. Thank you, Rice. They should give a big warm hug to Rice. Cade Welty.
I'm going to take a 5 seed here in Wisconsin. You're going to play High Point, excellent 3-point shooting team. And then the moment you do that, if you win, you got to play Arkansas, who is playing the best basketball in the country right now. You got to guard Darius Acuff. Oh, make him a Dallas Maverick. I know we're not supposed to bring the NBA into this. Make him a Dallas Maverick. That's all I'm going to ask. If you somehow beat Arkansas, because you have a great backcourt too at Wisconsin. You got to play Arizona, who's just gonna, like Brett said, out physical other teams. Earlier, he said that earlier today. Arizona's scary. Oh, and if you somehow beat Arizona, you got to play Gonzaga, Miami, BYU. It's a tough road to be a Wisconsin Badger. I fell in love with Wisconsin. I was first out on them. Now I'm in on them. I sent a text in our staff group chat, and I said they're my Cinderella Final Four team. After this bracket comes out, they're no longer my Cinderella Final Four team.
Didn't Houston have like first right of refusal to be the host in that region, and they passed it to Rice, which is maybe one of the most underrated, brilliant moves in college tournament history? Because
1,000%.
I mean, that's clairvoyance at its best right there, to be able to, we're a good program. There's a possibility that we could play right in Houston. Here you go, Rice. Take all that revenue, and we're just going to play at home and maybe win the national championship.
Let's go to upset 12 seed or greater, and my 12 seed upset. I've been saying it all year. Averaging 17 turnovers forced a game. It is going to be McNeese. And I've been hitting the drum, bringing out the boombox with Amir Khan. Yes, McNeese will upset Vanderbilt first round. That's my upset 12 seed or better. The rest is going to be chalkier than chalk. It is going to be so chalky. It's like you're going to be guzzling Pepto. Mychal Hunter.
A double-digit upset. I don't want to go
12 or greater.
12 or greater. It's got to be Akron, I think. It is. I know, guys. I'm 3 Texas Tech guys, but I don't know what I'm going to get out of Christian Anderson. You guys can tell me if Lawan Watts is good to go. I don't know what his status is, or as good as he was before, I guess. But who's the guard for Akron? I'm trying to look it up. It was Tavari Johnson, I believe his name is. Averages 20 points a game. He's been with John Gross for 4 years. He's got 135 games under his belt. He's an extension of the coach on the floor. He does it all. Akron didn't play a huge schedule during the season either, just like Miami of Ohio didn't, but he can absolutely fill it up. He's a coach on the floor. He's a 4th-year guy. Same school all 4 years. I love that. I think it's a good story. So, with Texas Tech being banged up, I'm going to take Akron as kind of I think probably the chalky pick as a 12 seed to get the win.
Ivetta, who is your 12 seed or greater upset special?
I actually, maybe it's wishful thinking after last year's chalky tournament, but I have 4 potential upsets. And again, it's I think it's wishful thinking, but I think we are going to see an upset this year. I don't know. I'm just feeling it, but I could see these 4, not saying all 4 are going to happen. But these are the 4 that I think could do it. So, Akron over Texas Tech for the aforementioned reasons. High Point over Wisconsin. If High Point gets hot, watch out, Wisconsin. Just a mismatch stylistically there. Troy over Nebraska, just because of how Nebraska, I don't like how they finished the season. They've had a lot of close calls. So I don't think Troy is the caliber of team that could pull a first round upset typically, but I think matchup wise for them, this could, if the pieces fall into place, I think it could happen. And then I have a very contrarian, controversial one, but Furman over UConn. So I think that is a sneaky one that could potentially happen as well.
Britt Ramirez, who is your upset special?
I have said it on the show before. Give me the Cal Baptist Lancers. Take down Kansas. They just Got rid of Utah Valley. The WAC is gone. Cal Baptist won the last WAC championship. No, in all seriousness, I love this California Baptist team. They're 19th in the country in rebounding at just over 40 a game. We've seen what happens when Kansas gets spread out. They can play physical, but at the same time, when they get spread out, and like in that second half of like the Texas Tech game, they start to crumble a bit. You can see the holes. Melvin Council is going to be on Dominique Daniels, who's going to be my hero of March. But the Cal Baptist bigs are going to be what decide this game, in my opinion. You got some really streaky shooters over there for the Lancers, but I think they're going to get it done. Especially what did I say? I said if they go to San Diego, that is an hour away from Cal Baptist campus, and there are going to be a lot of Lancers fans who want to see their team win their first ever NCAA game. So give me the Lancers beating Kansas.
I would love that. That would just make me so happy because, as I've said often, when Kansas loses, America wins. Cade Welty.
Unfortunately, I bet I said the one I really liked was Troy, Nebraska. I also love the Furman pick. Bowser, both Bowsers, but the forward, lethal stuff. He's a mini JT Toppin. If you want a film comparison, he plays identical in how he sets up his defenders. I really like Troy over Nebraska. Nebraska just scares me recently. I think that's the biggest thing. They just scare me. Inconsistency kills people in the tournament. You also have to win your tournament game. And I just don't know. Troy is such a fun team to watch. They play very fast and physical, and they fly all over the place. And sure, Nebraska does as well. But you haven't won a tournament game for a reason. So I really like that 13-14 or High Point, Wisconsin, like I talked about earlier with Wisconsin's run. High Point's going to shoot the 3-ball to death, and they don't need to. They're not going to make the Sweet 16. They just need to do it once for it to be an upset.
Jason, who is your upset special?
Yeah, I'll reiterate one point and then add a new one. I think, as Ivetta and Cade said, Troy has beaten San Diego State, Akron, and UAB this year, and they took USC at USC to double overtime. So they're not going to be afraid of Nebraska. And once, as the team mentioned here, as it gets late in the second half, Nebraska is going to feel the pressure of not only the game, but the first win in program history. So I really like that Troy pick. I'm going to go with Northern Iowa over St. John's. St. John's is playing great. Yep. Some of the teams they beat in the Big East are suspect. They're also traveling out west. And let's talk about pace. A lot of times when you see tournament upsets, we're talking about experienced guards, check for Northern Iowa, and we talk about changing pace. Northern Iowa is 363 out of 365 in pace. The ball, they will crawl it up the court. They will limit possessions, and at times St. John's has struggled to score this year. Northern Iowa's top 25 defense. So they also have an experienced coach who's won in March. So I'm going to go with the Panthers.
Nice choice with the Panthers. That would have been my second choice. Ivetta, what you got?
I just want to add to that. I agree. That was on my list as well. I just didn't want to throw 5 games at you guys. But yeah, I like that too. I like that, again, matchup stylistically. I love the way that Northern Iowa, I mean, they are just rolling. They are red hot. And again, that matters so much. They've got all the momentum, and St. John's has been getting a lot of attention, and something I like to do personally is fade the storylines. That happens all the time in March. Anytime that a team or a coach or is getting any sort of extra attention, they usually end up bowing out early in the tournament. We see that happening all the time for one reason or another. So I feel like the spotlight is on Rick Pitino right now, and I can definitely see Northern Iowa coming from behind, unsuspectedly taking them out.
Mychal Hunter.
So one of my favorite things to do is when I'm filling out my brackets after it just comes out, I go down through, I usually put all the 1, 2, and 3 seeds in the next round because they win it, whatever it is, 93% of the time. But also, after I do the bracket, maybe 8, 9, 10 times, I look for the game that I just blew right by every time for one of those 4, 5, 6, 7 seeds. And I look at that game because that seems to be the game that always bites me. And for me, that game is Arkansas and Hawaii, and nobody here mentioned that game, so I know I'm not the only one that's not really giving that a whole lot of thought. It's just penciling in Arkansas to the second weekend, basically. But there's no reason to look at Hawaii as a big-time threat to Arkansas. They didn't play a great schedule. They beat UC Irvine twice, I believe, which is probably their two best wins in the season. So there's no real reason to pay a whole lot of attention to them. But for whatever reason, that seems to be the game that always kind of bites me. You know, you think back to Ole Miss and Valparaiso back in the day. Ole Miss was a monster during the season. Arkansas just won the SEC tournament. They have a top 3 draft pick in Darius Acuff. They have a coach that's rolling. They have a program that's rolling. Their entire starting 5 is playing their best basketball of the season. It might be worth it in your upset bracket just to take Hawaii just for the fun of it, because everybody else might be taking Arkansas deep into their bracket. If you take Hawaii there, you have the opportunity to move other teams further down the line that some other people that you're playing against won't have in those positions. So if you want to take a chance on a game that nobody's thinking about and nobody's considering, I would take Hawaii over Arkansas.
Michael, is the mid-major dead?
Yes. You're seeing it. I've been kind of saying it all season. NIL has made the mid-majors like 4A ball to the Major League Baseball league. There are obviously some good mid majors here. I agree with Ivetta. I think we're going to see a couple of pretty good upsets. I also love that Furman pick. Bob Ritchie's been there before, but you're seeing it also be reflected in Vegas right now. When you look at some of the point spreads on some of these games are by far the largest they've ever been, between the 4 and the 13s, the 5s and the 12s, the 6s and the 11s. You're talking about 20-point spreads with a history of the 11 seeds winning 55% of the time. So, you know, history suggests something, but Vegas is seeing something else when they're setting these lines and they're making these guys huge underdogs. So I think it's only going to get wider as the revenue and the spending continues to grow. I think it's unfortunate. I think this could be one of the last great tournaments as far as having the perfect number in 64, having mid-majors that are very good, say McNeese, Troy, some other ones that we've mentioned here. I think that gap is going to continue to grow as teams start putting more and more revenue back into their rosters.
Brett Ramirez.
I 100% agree that the mid-major is dead, but it makes other tournaments like the NIT so much more interesting. Let's look at some of these matchups. Dayton, Bradley, heck yeah, Yale, UNCW, both who won their conference get to play in a game on UNCW's campus. UNCW gets to host a playoff game. That's awesome. You got, Auburn, South Alabama. That's a great – I love that matchup. I mean, Seattle University, who hasn't made a postseason tournament since 1957. It's great to see them in there. And you got St. Thomas, George Mason, Liberty. There's so many great opportunities for these mid-majors, and it's trying to figure who's the elite of the elite. So I think on one hand, yes, the NIL has absolutely killed mid-majors' chances, but then again, it also gives a chance for the NIT to come back into the spotlight and be like, hey, because, I mean, in the words of Walt Frazier, who played at Southern Illinois back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, I love the NIL. I love the NIT. I love what it did for me. It boosted me as a player. I think it's great for the NIT.
Ivetta.
I don't want to say that mid-majors are dead because I love my mid-majors, but I will say their relative just got the call that they're being moved into hospice. So they are, I mean, it's right there on the cusp, right? I like the NIT angle. I agree as well. The gap is going to continue to widen between talent, and mid-majors will just be basically trimmed down to a farm league for the Power Fives. But with that does come opportunity, I think, for other tournaments to come in, for maybe other revenue streams. I don't know what the solution is, because we were kind of thrown into this whole NIL thing without any sort of a blueprint or a map as to what the future is going to look like. So I don't think anybody thought that far ahead as far as the people making the decisions. So I do not want, I mean, these are all, we have 365 Division I teams, and it's just, it's just sad to see that, I made a comment about the one bid league conference tournaments versus the multi-bid league conference tournaments. And it is just crazy to see. I've attended 4 of them now. And it's just the championship, the celebrations. These bids mean so much to these teams. And then you watch a tournament like the Big Ten tournament, and it's just not the same. I mean, these teams don't care if they win or lose. They're not even, they're like playing half-ass and like sitting players because they're already locked in, so it's just not the same. It's not the same drive. It's not the same passion. It's not the same level of competition in the conference tournaments.
Time for our final 4 teams. Which teams will reach the final 4? Let's start out with Ivetta Abramyan.
So I think I'm going to go with Houston. I think they're so due. They're so due. I think they're going to beat Florida. I don't think Florida is going to be able to get there with their lack of guard play. So I like Houston there in that rematch. I like Michigan to come out of the Midwest. I like, I'm going to go with, if they get past Northern Iowa, I'm going to go with St. John's. I just don't think Duke is going to make it all the way for a variety of reasons. And then I'll go with Arizona in the West.
Mychal Hunter.
Oh my God. I hate to go real chalky, but I think like you're gonna have some excitement in obviously the first weekend as you normally do, but I think it's really gonna be a cream to the top type situation. I do have one surprise. I got Arizona coming out of the West pretty handily. I think I actually have Iowa State coming out of. Never mind. I can't do that. I just. I'm going to take Arizona out of the West. I'm going to take Duke out of the East. And then I think I'm going to go – I really want to take Illinois. I just – for whatever reason, I'm not a huge Underwood guy, but I like the makeup of that roster. They have size. They have shooting. They can spread the ball. They got 4 guys that can put 20 on you. I really like Illinois. I'm not sure if I'm 100% committed to that, being a Houston fan, but Houston has been – not bad, but they haven't been as good as I would expect. I think coming down the stretch, they're kind of lacking something. I don't know what it is. Maybe the tournament wakes them up a little bit. And then I'll go with Iowa State out of the Midwest. I think they're good enough. They have the guard play. They have the defense. Josh Jefferson's a star, even if nobody really wants to admit it. That's a lot of Big 12 that I got going on, but that's where I'm going to go. I think Duke, Arizona, Iowa State, and Illinois.
Brett Ramirez.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm going to go with Iowa State to make the Final 4. I trust them more than I trust Michigan right now. I'm going to go Arizona out of the West. So we talked about it. I said Houston had the roughest schedule. Unfortunately for everyone else, they're getting to play in Toyota Center. So I'm going to go with Houston there. And then Duke is where I'm having the hardest. I'm having the hardest time deciding what to do with Duke because at the same time, you got Patrick Gombo and Caleb Foster, 2 key guys who just don't know what's going on with them right now. So for me, it's between them and Michigan State.
Ooh.
Oh, sure, I know, right? But I'm gonna go with Duke. I don't like it. And then I have Arizona national champion.
Okay, before I give Cade and Jason their chance, I'm going to give my final 4 teams. Michigan State, Arizona, Iowa State, and Houston. And here's your Sean Knows Sports psychotic break of the day. TCU over Duke in round 2. Cade Welty, what you got?
We know me. I'm pretty wild sometimes when it comes to these picks. I like to have a little too much optimism, and it's gonna happen today. I only have one seed making the Final Four.
What?
Yeah, I know. Get ready for it, folks. Michigan State coming out of the East there. Houston, they're better than Florida. They should be the number 1 seed there, respectfully. Arkansas, I am riding. I hate it. I hate it that I just said I'm riding with Arkansas, but it is the right thing. They have the athleticism to contend with Arizona, and they have the guard play. And the only 1 seed I have making is Michigan, and I have Houston, Michigan playing the national championship. And give me the Cougars.
Jason Carmello.
Well, I thought my Michigan State pick was going to be a surprise, but it's not anymore. I'll go Michigan State, Houston, Arizona, and Michigan. I'll take Michigan to win the national title.
Oh my gosh, Mychal Hunter, what did you got?
I'm going to put a contingency out there. If Arkansas is able to beat Arizona, I think Purdue wins the national championship. Because I don't know if Purdue can beat Arizona, but I'm very confident that Purdue could beat Arkansas. And if that's the case, I think, Michigan's a little dinged up. Iowa State's got to go through a gauntlet if they get there. Nobody else out of that bracket really scares me. So I think if Purdue is able to get past Arkansas, I think they have a very easy road the first 3 rounds to get to Arkansas. If they play a dinged up Michigan team who they just beat, and they actually had that game was not close for quite a while. Michigan put on a furious comeback there. And, granted, it was admirable, but Purdue ended up winning the game. If Purdue wants to live up to their preseason hype, which it looks like they do now, I could see them getting to the final game and then, no holds barred, anything could happen at that point. So I think if Arkansas can knock off Arizona, Purdue wins the national championship. That's just a contingency plan, I guess.
Hey guys, where can people find you online?
Hey, you can find me on Twitter at Ivetta Abramyan, IVETTA
You can find me on Twitter at JBR on air. That's JBRONAIR, JBR on air.
You can find me over on Twitter at Cade Welty, CADEWELTY. And when you look that up, my face pops up.
You can find me on Twitter at Big Underdog Blog and on my website at big-underdog.com.
And you can find me on Twitter at Tease the Dog, DAWG, and on SKS on YouTube.
And you can always find me right here on YouTube, or you can find me at, well, of course, Sean Knows Sports. Final thought from me, Auburn loses the second round of the NIT. Anybody else got a final thought? Cade Welty, what's your final thought?
I'm going to give you a darling of March Madness, someone you should root for because it's fun, and that's going to be Vanderbilt because they all, like Jason said way back, easiest 5 seed route in the nation. They just beat that 1 seed in the bracket. Duke Miles being back. Holy crap. If anyone watched the SEC championship game, it was shot making after shot making. And that's also what you need in the big dance to give you the Commodores as your March Madness sweethearts.
McNeese is going to take care of them. Ivetta.
Let's go Retrievers.
Let's go Retrievers.
Let's go.
Mychal Hunter.
Let's go Troy Trojans for no reason in particular.
Brett Ramirez.
These are all really weird ways to say Dominic Daniels. Goal answers.
Jason Carmello.
When the ball's tipped off in the round of 64, the first game is Ohio State TCU. There's no player that deserves to play in the NCAA tournament more than Bruce Thornton. Good for him. They got in. Let's see what they can do.
That's your Sean Knows Sports March Sadness special. My thanks to Ivetta Abramyan, Cade Welty, Brett Ramirez, Jason Carmello, and Mychal Hunter. We'll be back next week with more sadness as we get sweet. I'm Sean, and as always, Sean Knows Sports.
He knows ball.
I know.
And track.
Yeah.
Sean Knows Sports.
You really do. I didn't know that.